When I was a kid, I never realized that all the things in my life, the people, the food, religion, my family, everything in my world was influenced by being Italian. In college in 1990, I had to research my roots for a class term paper. That's when this whole Italian roots thing ignited. That's my mom, Marie Giordano. I'll be using maiden names for this story. She introduced me to her side of the family through pictures that she had collected. My great-grandfather, Luigi Basile, his first wife, Teresa Ferraro, and his second, Maria de Grazia. My dad, Larry, holding me with my brother Larry and sister Alice by his side, showed me his side of the family. Pictures of his mother, my grandmother, Giustina di Prospo, and his dad, Giuseppe Chiucarello. That's me with my nonnu Giuseppe and my grandmother Edith on my mom's side. My grandmother, Edith Basile, married Michael Edward Giordano, who had a daughter named Marie Giordano, my mother, who married my dad, Lorenzo Chiucarello, otherwise known as Larry Chiucarello Sr. From right to left, Giuseppe, Giustina, Larry Sr., Marie, Edith, and her son, Michael Giordano. 6 years before my little sister Aunt Edith was born, Marie and Larry had me. I'm Ed Chiucarello, the little guy making the funny face in the driveway at 20 Walnut Avenue, Waterbury, Connecticut. Before I knew it, I was surrounded by lots of other kids, all growing up in a big Italian household with Italian food, Italian opera, Italian crooners like Frank Sinatra, Perry Como, and Tony Bennett, and Catholic school. So what about my Italian roots? Where in Italy did we come from? What's it like there? Is there anyone from my family still living there? I've been wondering this for 35 years. Finally, this year, 2024, in the 68th year of my life, I went to Italy to find out. This is my Italian roots story. That's me and Lexi outside our house in Rocky Hill, Connecticut, all packed and ready to fly 7 hours to Dublin and 3 more to Rome on Aer Lingus. The plan is to do some touristy things in Rome, Naples, and Sorrento, then head out east to the mountains, the Apennines near Avellino, to find my relatives, if I have any. Rome was gorgeous, with its palm trees and old-world architecture. We stayed 3 nights at the guest house Calamata. Of course, we went to the Colosseum. 1 million people, but still, unbelievable. After that, an outdoor cafe for pizza, pasta, and Lexi practicing her Italian. The Trevi Fountain was gorgeous. Another 1 million people, but still gorgeous. We saw the Spanish Steps and ate some roasted chestnuts, just like we used to do back in the day. The next morning, on the way to the Vatican Museum, I tried out an Italian breakfast. Lexi had an American one. Note to Italy, a cornetto is really not a breakfast item. We stayed for 3 hours in the Vatican Museum. I kept wondering how they got all that stuff in there. Lexi just loved the art. After a while, my neck actually started hurting from looking up so much. No pictures into the Sistine Chapel. And did I mention there were 1 million people? The last stop was St. Peter's Basilica. It reminded me of a picture of my mom and dad in Rome. A wonderful 3 nights in Rome, and boom, we're off to Naples on the high-speed train. Very cool. Rome is flat. Naples is hilly. Our driver, Francesco Bond, who drove us from the train station, said, "You take the funiculare up the hill and you walk down." Words of wisdom. We stayed at the Airbnb Attico su Golfo Napoli on Via Nicola Fanelli. This place had a $1 million view of Capri, Sorrento, and the Gulf of Naples. It was a unique apartment for sure. 3 steps to get into the kitchen. And look, the toilet is in the shower. You see that, right, with your own eyes? We walked the seaside, the Lungomare, and we ate. We walked up and down 1 million steps, and we ate. We strolled down the Via Toledo, and we explored the Spanish Quarter, and we ate. If you ever go to Naples, you have to stop at the Antica Trattoria di Nanagnello and ask for Emmanuel. He'll treat you like family. The last thing we saw in Naples was Castle St. Elmo on top of Naples' Vomero Hill. Unbelievable views of Mount Vesuvius, the Gulf of Naples, Capri and Ischia, and the city of Naples spread out with open arms. Fantastico. Our last touristy spot was a visit to Sorrento. So we hopped the Allilora ferry for €35 each, and in a half an hour, we landed in the port of Sorrento. Gorgeous. Instead of trudging up the switchbacks, we took the elevator up to the town level. We stayed 5 nights in Meta, which is just north of Sorrento, in a beautiful Airbnb called La Terrazza di Casa Lucia su Mare. It had a beautiful view of the sea and was surrounded by fruit trees. And it had the unique characteristic of having a church right next door with a bell that rang every 15 minutes, 24/7. I started my Italian driving experience here. The narrow streets are mostly cobblestone and, well, narrow. We actually had to pull our mirrors in a few times. It really was a blast to drive in Italy. The Italians drive like they talk, fast and loud. We had our own beach to explore in Meta, and we got to know the proprietors of the Alimentari, the supermarket. Their names were Salvatore and Michele. After all the rich outdoor cafe meals, we were yearning for some basic foods like bananas, juice, nuts, olives. From Meta, we took side trips. The first to very cold Mount Vesuvius. We wore all the warm clothes that we brought. You drive 3/4 of the way up the mountain to a parking lot, and taxis sit there waiting to bring you the rest of the way to the entrance above. Then, for about a half an hour, you walk straight up the mountain, and you're at the cone. You snap a picture at the top and try not to fall going back down the very steep path. We went to Vesuvius and Pompeii the same day, so we stopped for lunch along the way. Pranzo. I thought Pompeii was going to be creepy with the bodies and all that, but it really was great. Primarily because we booked a tour with Francesco. Fantastico. He filled the 2.5-hour tour with stories, jokes, and unbelievable history. We would have stayed longer, but the sun was setting. The next day, we continued our hiking. We walked the Path of the Gods, Sentiero degli Dei. This trail traverses the top of the Amalfi Coast from Nocelle to Bermano. The views are just unbelievable. We hiked a couple of hours, had a nice packed lunch with cheese and bread, and enjoyed looking out over the sea with Positano and the Amalfi Coast spread out underneath our feet. Gorgeous. Eventually, we returned to Meta for another plate of pasta and a romantic sunset. I actually ate pasta 6 days in a row. One last day in Sorrento had us exploring their old town, feasting on calamari, eating tiramisu, buying limoncello, and eating the best gelato one could find at Gelateria Naturale. I would literally fly back to Italy for another one of these. After 12 days being a tourist, it was time to get to work exploring my roots. So we headed into the mountains, a Spedaleto di Alpinola, Savignano, Irpino, and Sterno. We left the sea and Sorrento to travel northeast through the region of Campania to the province of Avellino, the Apennine Mountains, home of my ancestors. First stop, a Spedaleto di Alpinola, my mother's side of the family. Here I am looking for the name Basile, Iglesia, and Ferraro. We will search every church, town hall, and cemetery. I made up a fact sheet to show people who I'm looking for. We met our host Mickey at Via Marcello Ferro, where we stayed for 3 nights. This apartment was unique in itself in the fact that it had 20 steps to get to the kitchen, 15 steps to get to the bedroom on the second floor. It did, however, have a beautiful view of the mountains. Our Spedaleto is about 3/4 of the way up Partenio Mountain. On top of the mountain is the sanctuary of Montevergine, Mamma Schiavone, the Black Madonna. She is the patron of the LGBTQ plus community, and she is pictured in the sanctuary. She is the giver and forgiver of everything. Spedaleto is known for its pilgrimage to Montevergine. This statue in the center of town says it all. The village is small with a population of 2,000 and hardly any English spoken. Their small downtown is centered around Piazza di Magno. This is where we were told Luigi Basile and his family lived. There are beautiful flowers and arch designs in many of their cobblestone streets. It's just a very pretty town, and everyone we meet is so nice and helpful in pointing me to my relatives. I eventually meet Gennaro Basile, possibly my new second cousin, through a conversation with Antonio Lucia, a drum maker. Let me explain. In researching, I found out that the Temora frame drum is associated with Spedaleto. So in my best Italian, I called up the music shop that sells the Temoras, and we meet the Temora maker, Antonio. His shop is in the back of his house, just past the chickens. Antonio tells me that he knows a Basile and will introduce me after we look at the Temoras. His musician friend, Pasquale Genovese, who speaks a little English, drops by and demonstrates the drums for Lexi. She eventually buys one, something small enough to fit in our suitcase. After that, we all got in the car, went to meet Gennaro, and talked for a good half hour, all of them speaking in Italian, with just a little translation by Pasquale. Somehow I understood that Gennaro said his great-grandfather was Michele. Well, my great-grandfather, Luigi, had a brother named Michele. Gennaro also said, I think, that he had a great-uncle named Achilles, who was a shoemaker. Achilles the shoemaker is related to us somehow. He came to America in 1911. I don't know if the math works out. It was so hard to comprehend Gennaro, Antonio, and Pasquale all speaking Italian at the same time that Lexi and I eventually had to say, Piacere di concerti. Ciao for now. Nice to meet you. From our exploration of the cemetery, the churches, and the town hall, I came away with certified birth certificates for Luigi Basile and his second wife, Maria de Grazia. I did not find anything about Teresa Ferraro or her family. We did find my great-grandfather Luigi Basile's brothers, who are buried in the cemetery. Pasquale Basile is in the building high on the wall on the left-hand side, and his brother Gennaro Basile is outside in the back on the bottom level. For the last 3 days, I've been walking in the footsteps of my great-grandfather Luigi, his wife Maria de Grazia, and probably Teresa Ferraro. I now know part of my roots lie in Asperletto di Alpinola. Am Asperlettesi. Fantastico. Next stop, Savignano Irpino, home to the Chiucarellos, or as they say in Italian, Chiucarello. It's about a 40-minute drive from Asperletto. My nonno, my grandfather Giuseppe Chiucarello, and his wife Giustina de Prospo, plus their son, my uncle, Alberico, Albert Chiucarello, were born in Savignano. My dad, Larry, that little guy sitting on his mama's lap, he was born in the United States. No one from my family has been here since my Uncle Al visited years ago. I couldn't have been any more excited. We stayed at a very nice B&B called Dimora Albani at Piazza del Castello. It was the highest point in Savignano on top of the hill at the end of the town. We discovered lots of relatives here. We met Susanna di Prospo and her family. That's Susanna in red, her daughter Adele, and her husband Paolo, Roberto. They live on the outskirts of Savignano on a beautiful farm. Susanna is Vittorio de Prospo's granddaughter. Vittorio is my grandmother, Giustina de Prospo's brother. The next relative we met was my great-aunt, Maria Chiucarello. That's Maria and me. When we met, she gave me about 20 kisses all over. Lexi, too. That's Maria's daughter, Carmelino D'Amato. Maria is the daughter of Carmen Chiucarello. Carmelina's husband's name is Enzo Bruno, and their daughter is Anna Bruno. We found Carmelina with the help of Augustino and Franca, who we met in town. We ran into them and told them we were looking for Chiucarellos, and they drove us to Carmelina's house. Fantastico! In the cemetery, we found Carmen Chiucarello's headstone, just to the left from the entrance, inside a house named Caraturo Michelino. And we found Teresa Chiucarello, all the way at the back end of the cemetery, to the left, up on the top. Augustino told me they were baptized here in the Chiesa Madre di San Nicola e Santa Anna. How did I find so many relatives in Savignano, you might ask? Well, researching my roots one day, I found the Chiucarello name on a website called Families of Savignon di Puglia. That's what they used to call Savignano Irpino. I emailed the webmaster, Tony Labriola, and he introduced me to his cousin, Agostino Di Lillo, who lives in Savignano Irpino. That's Agostino. Agostino became our tour guide of Savignano, and we have him to thank for helping me find my relatives. His friend Franco, who spoke English, came along and was a fantastic translator for a few hours. What a treat. Agostino introduced us to one last relative, Generoso di Rienzo, and his family. This is his wife, Ida Di Paolo, and their daughter, Teresa. Generoso is the son of Teresa Chiucarello, my nonno Giuseppe Chiucarello's sister, and Paolo di Rienzo. They live on Via Toscano. Sadly, Generoso was lying in bed with a ruptured appendix. The most he could say was, "Mamma mia." Agostino gave me a nice gift of 3 certified birth certificates for Giuseppe and Alberico Chiucarello and Justina Di Prospo. We also saw the houses where my grandparents lived. Carmelina said that Giuseppe lived here in a small stone house right next to their house on Via Piano La Bella 14. Justina Di Prospo grew up here on Via Roma Calvario 67. I just had to sit on the front porch. And my great-grandfather, Matteo Chiucarello, lived here at Vico Trombetta 8, now Via Friuli Venezia Giulia. Being in Savignano Irpino was like being home. Lots of people, lots of food, and smiles all around, connecting with the old world, il vecchio mondo. My great-aunt and uncle, my second cousins. What a dream come true. I now know part of my roots lie in Savignano Irpino. I'm Savignanese. Fantastico. We had one last place to visit on my roots adventure, Sterno, the home of Michael Edward Giordano, my grandfather, on my mother Marie's side. Sterno was a bit more modern than the old worlds we had just explored. The streets were mostly tarred, but still there were some cobblestone in their small historic section. We checked into our chalet, Molina della Signora luxury country house, situated in the middle of a 3,000-tree olive farm overlooking the Ufita Valley. This place was gorgeous. We went to the cemetery. No Giordanos. We went to the town hall. We did find Michael Edward Giordano's birth certificate, but not his parents Luigi Giordano or Eloisa Guarini. So we took a drive to Fontana Rosa, 15 minutes away. No Giordanos. We did find one Giordano in Frigento, the home of the Donnarumas. Don't know if she's related. We are certain that Michael Edward Giordano was born in Sterno, but unclear where his parents were born. So what do we do now? Mangia! Our last meal at Molina della Signora was spectacular, and it fueled us up for our last day in Italy. Our return trip from the mountains to Rome landed us in Fiumicino, Lungomare della Salute. It was a seaside resort that was 2 minutes from the airport. The next morning, we were up at 4:30. We hopped the 6 a.m. flight back home, flying over the Alps to Dublin, and then connecting to our final flight to Hartford Bradley Airport. Our trip was over. My Italian roots discovered. And now what? When people visit Italy, they always seem to plan their return visit before they even get home. Maybe I'll go back to Savignano Irpino. I know a lot of people now. Maybe I could fix up my nonno's old house. I'll probably start sending Christmas cards to my new relatives and friends. For sure, I need to speak Italian better. I don't know what lies ahead. I do know, whatever it is, my life will be filled with Italian culture. This was a trip of a lifetime. And yes, I did find my roots. They were from the garden. They were the family sitting around the kitchen table. It was the music, the drum of the tamora, and a little limoncello. Sono l'italiano vero. I am Italian. It's true. And now, I know where I come from.
Oh Marie, oh Marie, oh Marie, oh Marie, in your arms I'm longing to be.
longing to be.
Baby,
Baby,
tell me you love me.
tell me you love me.
Kiss me once while the stars shine above me.
Shine above me.
Oh, Marie,
Oh, Marie.
hey, Marie.
Hey, Marie.
In your arms, I'm longing to be.
Longing to be.
Oh, baby,
Oh, baby.
tell me you love me.
Tell me you love me.
Marie. Come here, Sam. Come here, boy. Let me hear something. Where Marie? Where Marie? Quando zona ci pensa per te. Fama to me. Fama to me. Uno noto, uno noto. Uno noto bracciate con uno noto. Uno noto bracciate con uno noto. Bracciate con te. What happens, man? You can't play in Sicilian. Quando zona